Hello, everyone. You know, our veterans are celebrated several times during the year. We have Veterans Day and Memorial Day and the 4th of July. But there is one place where our veterans and our history are always celebrated and memorialized, and that is the Palm Springs Air Museum. Our guests are World War II P38 pilot and Palm Springs Air Museum docent, Blaine Mack, who is chairing a series of programs at the Palm Springs Air Museum from November through February, celebrating the 65th anniversary of the end of World War II. And guesting also is Greg Kenny, who is education coordinator for the Palm Springs Air Museum. Mr. Mack, you were what was your title in the service?
I was a lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel. Mack with us, retired.
Thank you.
And also Greg Kenny. And you said you really didn't know too much about World War II until you went to the Air Museum as education coordinator. I find that fascinating.
Well, I was a history teacher prior to coming on board at the Air Museum, and I taught everything from World War II to Egypt, and we covered it all in a week or so. But to really get my hands into World War II, it wasn't until I got into the museum that.
And are you enjoying it?
I love it.
Yeah,
I
great,
really do.
Great. Now, I know that this 65th anniversary of the actual end of the war, I can remember it as VJ Day. A lot of people today don't know what VJ Day means. Victory over Japan, I guess.
Correct.
But it was really kind of partially your concept, and you've been working on it, and you have events planned throughout the 4 months.
That's
you said
correct.
Maybe throughout the year even. So tell me about some of these events.
Well, we're planning to try to give a little bit of the insight of what took place in all of World War II, and it's hard to do. We'll be putting on a series of 8 programs, and to put almost 4 years of war in 4 different theaters at the same time into 8 weeks, into about what amounts to 10 hours of programming is rather difficult to do. So our biggest task is going to be being able to sandwich all of that stuff in there. But we're going to do it one way or the other, because everybody everywhere that was involved in that deserves to be recognized for what they contributed, and in many cases they contributed everything they had.
Yeah.
And so this is in honor to them. As I've said from the beginning, with our attrition rate the way it is, we may not have a chance to do a 70th one. The 65th one has to be right.
Yeah, well, I know that it will be. And of course, you were a part of all of this. There's a story, because they have biographies. I'm telling the viewers, there are biographies of all of the gentlemen who served in the war, and so many of them are working at the Air Museum. But there are these biographies, and I looked at yours, and before we actually were bombed at Pearl Harbor, you predicted the war as a little boy. Would you tell that story? Because I think that's marvelous.
Well, that goes back to 1938. At that time, I was pretty new at delivering papers, morning papers, every morning at 4:30 in the pitch dark with my little dog. And on the way, my route ended quite a ways from home. So on the way home, I would literally memorize that morning paper every day. And one Sunday, when I was delivering them, I paid no attention at all to what the paper said. It was only afterwards that I'd start reading this. And as I was walking home, here's a big picture on the front page of the USS Panay and the Shanghai and the Yangtze River sitting at the bottom of the river. The Japanese had bombed it. That was in December of 1938, and I made one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life, because I went home, and just about the time I got home, my parents were up and around, and under my breath I said, well, we're going to be at war with Japan, and I'm going to be in it, and my mother went right through the ceiling.
And you were the last World War II veteran in the Strategic Air Command.
Well, not quite. I was the last World War II fighter pilot.
Pardon me.
Because there were still a couple of my friends who had been bomber pilots in SAC who were still there.